Hello there guys, and welcome to another video here on the Phoenix Club. And after the success of my Champions League review show following the draw, I'm going to be doing exactly the same show but with Europe's second competition, the UEFA Europa League. Fortunately, I guess I won't be following this competition as necessarily a fan this year of a particular club, but I've got my eyes particularly on a few clubs in the draw, who I'm excited to see how they go. So, like last time, I'll go through probably the first six of the 12 groups. I'll give you some hot tips, some information about each club, and where I think they'll possibly come, who's going to get out of the groups, and maybe some tips as to who's going to go even further and maybe even win the competition. Always tough with Europa League because you never know with the Champions League dropouts who is going to come in. But let's see, maybe this year we'll have, like last year, a winner who's been in the Europa League from the group stage. And we start with Group A, and the first club is the most prestigious club in this competition, Sevilla. Um, Under their new coach, ex-Real Madrid manager and Spain manager, Julen Lopetegui, returned to the competition after a year, or possibly even 2 years, in the Champions League, having come sixth in La Liga last season under, I think it was Berizzo and Pablo Machin. So this is interesting. I think they're going to be a dark horse to obviously add to their, I think, 5 Europa League titles. Obviously, they won three in a row under Unai Emery from 2014 to 2016. And in some ways, it would be a surprising surprise if they did win it again. But all in all, in some ways, it wouldn't, because obviously they have the pedigree. The second team out of pot two is Apoel Nicosia. Um, Cypriot champions, champions of Cyprus, but I guess some of you will be surprised that they're in pot two. Obviously, never come really, really far in a European competition, bar obviously making the Champions League quarterfinals in 2012. However, I'd say with Apoel, they're always a tough team to beat at home. Chelsea were in the same group as Apoel quite a few years ago now, and I just remember they'll make life hard. They'll block you. They'll perform a low block and basically suck up the pressure. Could I see them going far? I don't think I can see them winning the competition, but they've got the new coach, Thomas Doll, and I do think that they're equipped to get out of this group, particularly given the relative weakness of the other two clubs in there. The first of which being the Azerbaijani champions, FK Karabakh. Um, Again, obviously, their home ground was used last year for the final of this competition, and they seem to make the group stages of UEFA competition every season. Obviously, drawing Chelsea in the Champions League 2 seasons ago, drawing Arsenal in the Europa League draw a year ago. Um, and again, it's another team where I look at and I think, yes, again, they might pick up some points at home, just as they drew with Atletico in the Champions League a couple of years back. But I don't think they have the quality to really challenge Sevilla and Apoel and make it into two-leg football past January. The fourth team is one of my favourites just because it's so interesting. FK, I think it's FK, I'm probably getting it wrong. It's FC Dudelange from Luxembourg. Last season, they were the first Luxembourgish team to make the Europa League, um, drawing in the same group as AC Milan and Real Betis. And I just find it amazing that a club from such a small nation in Europe is able to make the group stages of the Europa Cup. I think they did pick up some points as well. I think they drew with Olympiacos possibly, but it's not really about that for them. It's the fact that they're getting a good amount of cash for getting in the competition, and they're just enjoying days out against much more sort of renowned clubs like Sevilla. I think Dudelange again could at home possibly get some points. They're not making it out of the group as far as I'm concerned, but I think it's a great thing within European football that they've made the group phase of the Europa League, and for that we should all kind of celebrate. It shows that the Europa League's beyond no man, and if you can make it one year, you got the funding to really make a good claim to make it the next year. And into Group B, guys, we've got the Ukrainian champions Dynamo Kiev, second in Ukraine last season, made the UEFA Cup Europa League, I think, round of 16, where they lost to Chelsea, I think 8 or 9-0 on aggregate, but always in and around the group phase of either the Champions League or the Europa League. I know Chelsea were in their Europa League, in their Champions League group in 2016. I think also they were in Europa League maybe the last couple of years, but always seemingly dangerous, and they know how to navigate a group. This group, by the way, I think is a lot more open than the last. I think Group A, it will be Sevilla and Apoel getting out of it. I can't see Karabag or Dudelange making it. This group, I think there's three clubs that really are going to challenge for knockout football. The first of which being Dynamo Kiev, and the second team out of pot two in the competition is FC Copenhagen, who are drawn into Group B. Managed by Starle Solbakken, I think for the sixth year now. Ex-Wolves manager back when they were in the Championship. And they also have experience at grinding out groups, or being in groups, making it to the Europa League round of 32. They're champions of Denmark this year. While they have no big names, I was looking through their squad. I don't think any team will enjoy the trip to Parken in Copenhagen. Always a fanatical atmosphere. And I think they will compete with Dynamo Kiev for qualification, possibly top in the group. And out of pot three is another Scandinavian side. A club I've been told by my Swedish uncle to dislike is Malmö FF. Came third in the Swedish Allsvenskan last season. And they are, again, like last year, drawn in the same group as a Scandinavian rival. Last year it was FK Sarpsborg from Norway. This year it's Copenhagen from Denmark. And they made the round of 32 last year, knocked out by Chelsea again. However, they made life tough for the Blues, particularly in Malmö at the Swedbank Stadion. And I definitely can't see them not getting out of this group. Whether that's at the expense of Kiev or Copenhagen, I think any one of those three can get out. And I think it's going to be one of these groups where each team will beat the pot four club, which is Lugano, third in the Swiss Super League last year. It's their second appearance in European competition. I can't even see them getting a point against these three clubs, all quite plucky, sort of traditional group stage grinders, I dare say. And I think it's going to be one of those groups where Lugano will have 1 point or no points. And Kiev, Copenhagen and Malmö will all have about 10 each. And it might come down to head-to-head or goal difference. But if you want my pick, I'm going to go for getting out of this group. I'm going to say Dynamo Kiev and Malmö. I think Copenhagen might miss out, even though I must admit they're a respectable club and they could well prove me wrong. So apologies in advance, guys. On to Group C now. It's Basel, who came out of pot one, second in the Swiss Super League, taking a sort of rare break from the Champions League for the second year in a row, having been demoted to Europa League last season as well. And always troubles the top clubs whenever they are in the Champions League or even the Europa League. I remember them beating Man United in 2012 to knock them out. I remember them beating Chelsea home and away in the group phase in 2013-14. And I could easily see Basel making the round of 16, quarter-final stage. There's something about them that at home at the St. Jacobs Park, they always are dangerous. They come at you. And I think, particularly given their group's probably not the strongest, I can see them cruising out of this group and getting a favourable round of 32 draw, being in the seeded pot. But on to the next club, it's Kuban Krasnodar from Russia, third in the Russian Premier League last season. It's their fourth season in the Europa League. They've qualified for the Europa League, I think possibly 4 years in a row, or 4 of the last 5 years. And again, I'm not sure. I think they made the knockout stage only once of those 4 occasions. But again, no team likes a trip to Russia. And I'm saying this again about a lot of the clubs I know. No club would like a trip here, no club wants a trip there. But it's often in the Europa League, not the teams with the biggest quality that actually make it far. I mean, I remember when Dortmund got knocked out of the group phase, I think it was, because they're not as interested in the competition. Whereas for a club like Krasnodar, particularly now they're a pot two side, they could easily grind their way out of this group and advance because they've always got the tool of a tough away leg in Russia, and also a team that's now accustomed to playing group stage football. So out of pot three is another dangerous club who I'm going to say is a real dark horse for this competition. It's Getafe. They came fifth in La Liga last season, and they were unlucky not to make top four, I'm going to say. Valencia pipped them on the last day. And while they haven't played a lot of European football in the past, they really were one of La Liga's surprise shock packages last season. Really challenging. I think they're above Real Madrid come February, March. And again, they're pot three because of the lack of experience. But in reality, I can't see them not getting out of this group. So I'm going to say, yeah, they're likely to go through. But this is another group which is very four-sided, because Trabzonspor, who are the fourth club out of pot four, and they fourth in Turkey last season, but they've just signed Liverpool striker and near Premier League Golden Boot winner Daniel Sturridge. And I don't think it's going to be one of those groups like the last one where Trabzonspor have 0 points. I don't think that at all. I think it could be one where any one of the four clubs can go through and can mount a challenge. But if you want my opinion, guys, it's going to be Getafe topping the group and Basel coming second. I know I was saying that Basel were going to top the group, but actually I've changed my mind. I think that Getafe will be too strong. Basel will definitely qualify. We'll see who they get in the round of 32 and whether they can make a run. And Group D is a strong group, particularly the first two clubs anyway. First one is Sporting Club de Portugal. They've lost Bas Dost to Eintracht Frankfurt, who we'll come to later. But they're always a strong side. They play, obviously, in Lisbon, third in the Portuguese league last season. And I would say they're pretty odds on to get out the group. They made it. They're in Chelsea's Champions League group, I think in 2015. They're in Arsenal's Europa League group last season. I can't remember if they qualified. I think it was Arsenal's group. I think they made it to the round of 32, got knocked out then, and I can easily see them emulating, if not improving that this season. Next is PSV Eindhoven, again minus another big name striker, Robin van Persie. Came second in the Eredivisie last season to Ajax, of course. Again, a historic club, being in the Champions League last season. Got knocked out by Tottenham and Inter Milan. But again, a dangerous club when it gets to Europa League level, because they are European Cup winners and they've got the quality. They've got Steven Bergevin, I can't pronounce the name, they've got top players in the Dutch national team, and they're obviously a good candidate to make a decent run through this group. Next, we've got Rosenborg, who won the Norwegian League last season, knocked Celtic out of the Champions League, and then Celtic returned the favour in the Europa League groups last year. Very strange how a team can get drawn, the same team that knocked them out the Champions League in the Europa League groups, but a quirk of European competition. And they're dangerous, but I don't think they're getting out the group stage again. I think Sporting and PSV are too strong, especially for Rosenborg, but also for European debutants this season, or particularly group stage debutants. LASK Linz from Austria came second in the Austrian Bundesliga last season, unluckily knocked out of the Champions League in the playoff round. It's annoying me. I've completely forgotten who it was. I think it was Club Bruges who knocked Linz out. Um, It'd be exciting to see them in Europe for the first time, but I can't see them beating the two heavyweights and mounting a challenge. Could get a win over Rosenborg because they're obviously a good side, but can't see a mountain run. So I think PSV are going to win the group, and Sporting Club de Portugal will come second. And so on to Group E, the penultimate group of this preview part one, and the team out of pot one actually came eighth in their domestic league. It's Coppa Italia winners SS Lazio, still coached by Inzaghi. I think completely forgotten his first name. I know his son, Pippo Inzaghi. Inzaghi, good coach. They've still got Milinkovic Savic. Hard to know how they'll do given how poor they were at league level last year. They were in the Europa Cup, Europa League groups last season, but this group is so open. It's probably the most open group of the tournament, guys. I can make a case for any of the four clubs winning the group. Forget coming second. Out of pot two, we got Scottish champions Celtic, who came through their playoff round against, I think it was Alashkert, or maybe that was Champions League. No, they came up that Alashkert was Champions League. They came through the playoff against Oike Solna, my uncle's club in Sweden. So, not happy days for me. I was wanting Oike to go through actually, but they made the round of 32 last season. They're obviously no team likes playing at Celtic Park unless you're Celtic, and they under Neil Lennon have a point to prove because they didn't have a particularly great season last season despite winning the SPL. They just beaten Rangers at Ibrox, so it shows they're dangerous. And Neil Lennon, in his first full season in charge after replacing Brendan Rodgers, will be wanting to make the knockout round of this competition and continue European football after Christmas for, I think, the third or second year in a row. So that'll be exciting. The third team in this group came 10th in their domestic league. And having lived in France, I watched the French Cup final, and Stade Rennais beat Paris Saint-Germain on penalties. Great saves from the goalkeeper Kubek from Rennes. Mbappe getting sent off that game. They did come 10th, but they're back in by virtue of that win. They were in the competition last season, getting cruelly knocked out to Arsenal, beating them 3-1 in France. And they're, again, another dangerous club who have pedigree in this competition. You know, getting to the round of 16 last season, or round of 32, no, it was round of 16 because Arsenal then played back Borisov. Getting to the round of 16 last season, doesn't matter where you come in the league, this is a knockout, guys. Obviously, once you get to knockouts phase, it's so open. This group, though, is four teams of really similar level. Rennes will not struggle to compete despite coming 10th in Ligue 1. And the final club, Celtic's Champions League conquerors, CFR Cluj, fell at the last stage in the Champions League playoff round. I believe it was Ajax that did beat them. No, pardon me, that was Apoel. I believe it was one of the heavyweights that beat Cluj in that final qualification phase. They're in Europa League. Again, similar, Celtic drawn against their Champions League conquerors yet again. Wonder if they can, again, conquer the conquerors and knock Cluj out of European football the way that they did with Rosenborg last season, having been knocked out of the Champions League by Rosenborg. So that'll be an interesting one to see. Looking at the groups, this is really, really, really tough because I could bet on any single one of them with a degree of confidence winning the group, to be honest with you. I'm going to call going through. I think Rennes will win the group. And I'm going to say Celtic will come second and SS Lazio will be knocked out. Simply because Serie A is a very competitive league this season. Be interested to see how they do, given the strength of the league, and I think they won't want to put too much attention to the Europa Cup, given how competitive the domestic league is in Italy this year. So, on to the final group of the Part 1 preview. It's the group of Arsenal, 6th in the Premier League last season, Unai Emery's club. Don't need to say too much, guys. But they've got a tough draw, drawn against last year's Europa League semi-finalists. Knocked out only on penalties to my club Chelsea. It's Adi Hütter's Eintracht Frankfurt. Really, really dangerous club. So, DFB Cup winners 2 seasons ago. Obviously, 7th in the Bundesliga last year was disappointing, given they had Jovic, Haller, Rebic. But obviously, having got rid of the first two, they've still got Rebic, they've still got Bas Dost, they've still got Pacienza, the Portuguese striker, son of the legendary Pacienza. He was big team, big tactician, I think, in one of the Porto teams in the 90s. And those two are going to have 2 thoroughly fascinating games. I'm convinced of that. 2 entertaining sides with tactically really quite astute managers. I really do rate Adi Hütter, having come from, I believe it was RB Salzburg, and solidifying Frankfurt. We'll see whether they can both go as far as the semi-finals again this year. But to start with, they've both got to get out of a tough group. The third team in that group being Standard Liège, third in the Belgian Pro League last season. Managed by ex-Bruges manager Michel Prudhomme, of course a goalkeeper, I think, in the 80s and 90s for Belgium. And they're a club, they've had a bit of a break from Europe the last few years, to my knowledge. I think they might have been in Europa last season, but before that, had a bit of a rest. Do I think they're on Arsenal and Eintracht's level? No, I don't. But can I see them, obviously, with a decent manager, decent tactics, taking points off those 2 clubs at home? Yes, I do. And I think it'll be a big battle between Liège and the 4th pot club, Vitória de Guimarães. I apologise for my pronunciation in advance. I know it's the same city England played the Nations League in, but they were 5th in the Portuguese league last season, been in the Europa League the last 2 campaigns, and you've got basically 4 clubs who are very experienced European campaigners. I can't say too much about the players of the smaller clubs, of course. You'll see throughout the video. I've done very much on league form, but I don't think they've got out of the group either of the 2 years. Do correct me, guys, in the comments if I am wrong, but what I can say is I'm certain Eintracht and Arsenal will go through. I'm not sure which will go through as group winners. But I do think it'll be a pretty 2-sided group, guys. And to conclude the video, I've given my tips. I've given some dark horses. I don't think you overlook Rennes. I don't think Sevilla can be overlooked this season. And I've tried to give you a bit of a preview. Obviously, I don't know as much about the clubs, but do let me know if you support the clubs. I got some great comments from guys last on the Champions League video, talking to me about their signings and players. Really meant a lot to me, guys. It was great to have the interaction. Do tune in, tell your friends, like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at the Phoenix _club. That would really help us. And we'll see you very soon, guys. Got a very, very special guest on Football Mastermind yesterday. And if you guys want it, I'll do part 2 of the Europa League preview in a couple of days once this fantastic Mastermind episode does go live tomorrow. Hype for that, guys, and see you very soon.